Welcome, fearfully and wonderfully made humans, to another episode of the Holistic Counselor Podcast. It's me, Diana, from Through the Valley Therapy. And as always, I am glad you're here. Today, I have a truly special guest who's bringing some serious wisdom about the powerful connection between gut health and mental health. Let me give you a little backstory. I first met Kate Zapata through the Holistic Business Network when I was looking for a nutritionist to speak at the Greater Federation of Women's Clubs for Health Month. Kate absolutely knocked it out of the park, blending science with practical teaching that left everyone inspired. I knew right then I had to bring her onto the podcast to share her knowledge with all of you. Kate is a holistic registered nurse, nutritional therapist, and founder of Simple and Sweet Nutrition. She specializes in helping women heal their guts, balance their hormones, and recover their health through personalized nutrition. With 15 years of nursing experience and a focus on digestion, metabolic recovery, and foundational nutrition, Kate has helped countless women transform their lives. I'm thrilled to have her here to dive into how the gut impacts our mental health. So, Kate, let's get started.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. All right, Kate. So tell us a little bit about your personal story. How did you end up from being a nurse, a registered nurse, right, to
Yes.
now what you're doing?
Yes. Yes, as you mentioned, I started as a nurse, so I was basically following all of the regular conventional guidelines. And I had some of the issues myself, gut health issues, some hormone issues, definitely a lot of focus around energy and just totally exhausted and fatigued all the time. I suffered from migraines, PCOS post birth control. And so a lot of those things were really addressed in the conventional way, as in there's really nothing you can do. Just continue on. I mean, that's just part of getting older. Um, and during that time, funny enough, my son had issues of his own. He was probably at that time, I want to say maybe 6, maybe 9, and suffered with what was diagnosed as cough variant asthma. And as a nurse, I was like, what is that? What can
Yeah.
you tell me more? What can we do? We spent um, like weekly visits at a doctor, just continuously asking, what can we do differently? Because it's not getting better, it's getting worse. And at that point, he was taking all sorts of steroids and inhalers, and it was just
Mm-hmm.
not getting any better.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up in an urgent care. He was put on antibiotics yet again, and by some magical force, I ended up going to a yoga class. And the lady that led the yoga class, actually the owner of the place, told me that they're having a wellness fair.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of shared the story of my son, and she's like, I have this doctor that can definitely help you. I'm like, okay, I will. At this point, I was like, please
Trying it
just
right.
give me anything that could make a difference. And he was a chiropractor, and he actually practiced nutritional therapy. I can tell you that within 2 weeks of seeing him, um, I've seen changes in my son.
Mm,
And I was just like, my mind was blown because we were doing pretty much everything we were told.
right.
Up until that point, we had testing for food allergies, we had testing for regular environmental allergies, and none of that was really uh, changing. They said he's
Mm-hmm.
not really allergic to anything, he can eat anything. And, standard American diet, even though I cooked at home, was
Right.
still consisting of a lot of processed foods, a lot of breads, a lot of
Mm,
pastas, things like that. Um, so when we started going to see the chiropractor, he told me to change some things in the diet. We eliminated gluten because in my son's family, on his dad's side, there is a lot of celiac disease.
Wow.
So we eliminated the gluten. We have changed the dairy, conventional dairy, to raw dairy. That was probably one of the first two recommendations that he made. And then
And
he gave,
can I
go
ask you
ahead.
how long ago that was? How long ago did this happen?
That was, I want to say, probably 12 years ago or so.
Yeah. Like I had a similar situation with my youngest, and it was about 14, 15 years ago. The same,
Yeah.
like, like even longer, but it was like he got diagnosed with asthma. He had eczema, right?
Yeah.
All right. It's
Yes.
like someone was, and then I
Very
was like,
common.
I went to my pediatrician and I'm doing the
Hmm.
right thing. Like I'm listening and following
Yes.
those. And when I first saw him take the inhaler and I saw how his brain changed, and I'm like, there has
Yes.
to be a better way. I went to a chiropractor too. What did the chiropractor say? And you know what? I don't want to put down conventional medicine because these doctors are doing the best they can with the knowledge that they received. And
Correct.
they're not trying to be mean, right? But
Yes.
sometimes they just don't know and they don't, they have 1 hour of nutrition, maybe, or like 1 day of
Yes.
nutrition, right? In their degree of all the
Yes.
years they're in medical school. I do see a shift changing now, finally
Hmm.
20 years
Yes.
later or so. But what was it that the chiropractor do? Did they like any supplements, or was there like what
Yes.
changed
Yes. It was.
besides
So he actually did muscle testing. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
yes,
he
but
did.
my audience might not. So, like, I might, if I say yes, I do, but I would still love for you to explain. So then the audience that don't understand this might have a better understanding of what we're talking about.
Okay, so muscle testing is really a response of your body to any outside, anything outside of you.
Hmm.
And the way that is tested is that the uh, the person, the practitioner, will ask you to. Usually, it's with the arm or with a larger muscle group. You hold your arm out, and they will press on your arm.
Hmm.
And when you are negatively reacting to any food or substance, your muscles will basically give out. So you will not be able to hold out your arm. And trust me, I've tried it and I
Yeah.
was shocked how that worked. And for my son specifically, as he did the full testing of everything, and he was on a lot of supplements in the beginning. I will
Hmm.
say pretty high doses. All of the supplements, though, were food based, so they were not like synthetic supplements.
Right.
So I felt comfortable with doing that. There was some detoxification that we did down the line, but really focusing on cleaning up the diet as well.
Hmm.
And I'm telling you, within 2 weeks, his coughing would subside
Wow.
significantly, and he stopped having chest pain, and it was just getting better to the point where I'm like, well, there is something in this. And he gave me a book. The doctor gave me some recommendations to read, and I think the first one that we were reading was uh, Sally Fallon's book.
Oh yeah.
And then, so I dove into that Wise Traditions, just everything Wise Traditions, right? All of the information
Yes.
that they have.
Which I
And
had Holistic Hilda on my show.
yes, yes. Actually, that's how I started listening to her podcast.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, so that traditional information, and then obviously I read about Weston A. Price and a lot of it just went down the rabbit hole. I started
Mhm.
studying, learning, and to be honest, there was no turning back at that point because you cannot um you have a year of just seeing how your child is suffering, and then you see a change.
Yes.
So
And what a difference, right? Like I
yes, what a
know
difference that
that
made.
I wasn't introduced to Sally Fallon yet when my son was really, really little. It was after his 12, his traumatic brain injury. But when he was really little with the with the asthma and the eczema, and
Yes.
it's in the bloodline, like, you know what I mean, like but
Mm-hmm.
I did not know giving him that waffle,
Yes.
I had no idea because I didn't, I was raised on Burger King, I don't know, and rice
Mm-hmm.
and beans, like both of those. but he said, do this. Let's change his diet. Let's give him cod liver oil. Like, I'll
Yes.
never forget the emulsified cod liver oil, and it smelled like
Mm-hmm.
lemons and fish. And I'm like, ew,
Yes.
cod liver oil. And um, take him to the ocean because we live by the
Yeah.
beach, and put him in the salt water and let him be. And I'm like, wait, what? You see how fair my kid is? Like,
Yes.
but I followed the chiropractor, and he adjusted him.
Mm-hmm.
And within weeks, I did not have to use the inhaler. And for anyone that has asthma, please do not stop your medication. Just go to the beach.
Right.
You need to have a holistic practitioner that knows what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I get it. I get it. It's like when you see something, all of a sudden you're like become aware. You're like, whoa,
Yeah.
okay, now that I've seen what it's done for me, right,
Mm-hmm.
and my family, I want to now share this with you guys, right? And so, you know, you also had your own personal challenges with your
Mm-hmm.
body. I did too, right? I was
Yeah.
diagnosed with Graves' disease. I was diagnosed with all these different things, but I had no idea that it was everything. The stress as a mom. Let's
Yes.
talk about the stress of motherhood in your 30s, right? Early 30s,
Yes.
right? Um, just our food and our water and our air is not as healthy
Mm-hmm.
as it was 100 years ago. Okay. And nobody understood that the gut is a second brain.
That's so true. So true. Nobody really, yeah, exactly. Nobody really talked about it back then. There was really no mention of the microbiome. And now I feel like everybody knows, oh, all disease starts in the gut.
Mm-hmm.
And so health also starts in the gut. Um, and it's connected to so many different things. But back then, 10, 12 years ago, when he told me you have to be gluten free, I'm like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? Like, how do
Yeah.
we do that?
That's all
Um,
hogwash, is what I heard. Oh,
yeah.
come on. Even my husband, I love you, honey, if you're listening. But even him, he's just like gluten free. Come, I've been eating gluten. I'm this, oh,
Yes.
but then when you really study what happened in 1995 with glyphosates and all
Yes.
that, and people are like, what are you talking about? That's so woo woo. So, do you
Yeah.
know about that stuff? Can you maybe
Yes.
explain what
Yes.
that
So
means?
so we started spraying majority of our crops with glyphosate, and it really disrupts not just the microbiome, but the mucosal health of our gut. And so now, really, not only now, I mean, it started probably early 2000s, we started seeing just this explosion of chronic disease.
Mhm.
And I'm talking about every possible disease you can think of. There's just so much higher rates of everything out there. So, um, and and it's not just glyphosate. There's other things, our air, our water. But for example, in the water, we used to have magnesium naturally flowing in our waters, but since all of those additions, agricultural things are running into our water sources, that magnesium is no longer there. So we are seeing so much depletion in minerals altogether, just a
Mhm.
lot of depletion. And that's why people have all these issues. And
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, but it's not just at this point, I feel like it's not just enough to eat healthy, eat
Mhm.
vegetables and salads and this and that. It's we have to take it a step further and just really be mindful of replenishing and nourishing our bodies well.
Yeah. So let's talk about now the second brain a little more, like the gut health and mental health. What does that actually mean? Because some people, like I'm a holistic therapist that work with clients,
Hmm.
and I try to get them to understand what they're doing to their body. And they're like, oh, I hired you for the mind, right? I'm hiring you
Yes.
because I have anxiety and depression. And I'm like, well, those are
Hmm.
symptoms of something that's happening. It could be what you're eating, it could be the lack of sunshine, it could be
Hmm.
dehydration, it could be A, B, C. We have to get to the root cause.
Hmm.
So, with especially us women, right? Because we have every month a different cycle. I'm going through my
Hmm.
second puberty now, so because that'll show you how old I am. But but it's still, I have to
Yes.
watch what I'm doing to my system. and some people will be like, just have a little fun. And I go, well, I have to make choices every day to keep my mental health well,
Yes.
right? But that includes what I put in my mouth.
Right.
Well, so let's talk about how that, like, what do you like? What do I mean? What do we mean when we're like, no, like your gut health affects your mood?
Yeah, so just a quick example, right? We talk about serotonin a lot when we are dealing with depression and just neurotransmitters and making sure that they're in proper levels, right? But as you mentioned, sometimes that is just an outcome. So the way we feel is just an outcome of how our body is functioning. So uh, for example, serotonin is majority of it is really made in our gut. So 90% of your serotonin is made in your gut. About 50% of dopamine is created in the gut. So when we're talking about mental health, we cannot um, skip this part. We cannot skip this part of what we're eating, what we're doing with our bodies, how we're replenishing, how our gut is functioning, and how we're using our food, right? So if we're eating a lot of synthetic foods, things that are stimulating and really not good for our gut, you will see that in the behavior. And you can see that in children so easily, right?
Yes.
Because if you feed them, and there's this whole thing about Fruit Loops right now, but all
Oh
of
yeah,
those colors,
Kellogg's.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
So all of those colors, how they affect our children's health.
Mhm.
Moms firsthand can tell you that the way the children, when your children are fed, what they eat really makes them behave differently, right? Because I can tell you, I have a 5-year-old, and he will, for the most part, eat healthy foods at home. But then when he goes outside, let's say there's a soccer game or maybe
Mhm.
baseball game and there's snacks given out, and
Yes.
he will get just, usually
Yes.
it's unfortunately junk,
Yeah.
and his behavior just changes. You can
Yes.
see it.
He gets crankier. I see it with my
Yes,
grandkids, like all of a sudden, and I get it. Like we have to participate in community and life. I understand that. I understand that we go to these functions of whatever community
yes,
you're part of, and you go in and there's, the bake offs or whatever it
mm-hmm,
is, but it's like, uh, there has to be better. Well, I do blame the big food because
yes,
in different countries, what's legal in our own country is illegal in their country.
other places,
And
yeah, in
that's
Europe
what that food
specifically.
babe, I forget her
Yeah,
real name, she's fighting for. But you're right. Like all of a sudden you get the Gatorade with all the red dyes
yeah,
and the blue dyes and the yellow lakes and and
yeah,
then on top of that, here is your cupcake with
yes,
and now they just finished playing a game and then they spin off and then you're wondering
mm-hmm,
why they're spinning off and it's like, you know, I bet you if these were more natural ingredients,
mm-hmm,
the kids, we're the adults. We should be teaching the next generation on nutrition and how it's all
right,
connected, that we're holistic beings.
right.
So is there anything, okay, tell me about your company a little bit. Like tell me about, I come to you, pretend
Mm-hmm.
I am like, all right, I heard you on the holistic podcast, Miss Zapata, and I hear that you can help me feel better because I'm feeling really crappy. My skin is breaking out. I'm not sleeping in the middle of the night. I'm waking up at 3 in the morning. I'm stressed out. I'm being mean to my kids and I don't want to be mean. I'm just really feeling really terrible. And I drink a lot of wine at night because,
Yes.
that's how I end up calming down after I put my kids to sleep.
Yeah.
How would you start with me as a client?
So I owe the first thing I ask my clients is usually how ready are you to make changes to fix this, right? Because you have to be involved in making changes in your life, right? So if you tell me that no, I want to continue drinking the wine at night and doing all those things and maybe skipping breakfast and whatnot, um, often ask, how bad do you feel? Like, how would you rate that? How much would, how much better would you feel if you would be able to get up in the morning, waking up with energy, if you weren't irritable, if you didn't have mood swings, right? How much better would your life be? And is it worth making the change? So most of my clients will say, yes, I'm ready to make the change because by the
Mhm.
time they get to me, they've already tried pretty much everything on the internet, right? All these
Yeah.
supplements, all these different diets, and most of those things did not work, partially because it's really not suited to them, right?
Hmm.
It's not individualized, and then partially because those some of those diets that are touted as healthy are really not sustainable, right?
Can you give me an example?
Well, keto diet,
Hmm.
even though yes, it could be beneficial for a lot of conditions. I
Hmm.
don't think that it's a diet that I would suggest to just anybody, right?
Okay.
Because
Yeah,
it's
that makes
very
sense.
difficult to sustain, and our body does need some carbs.
Hmm.
And there's caveats in that, obviously,
Hey.
but just in general. So, what I do with my clients is we go over in detail through the history, health history, and then not just health history, sort of life history, because I want to see, have you had any big events in your life that could potentially put a lot of stress on you, right? Like
Yeah.
moving, maybe losing your job, maybe divorce, um, all of those things,
Yeah.
maybe death in the family. So all of those things really impact us and how we cope. And really, what happens is we are using up all of those nutrition stores that we have in our body, and we're just burning through them when we are in stressful situations. So I like to sort of look at when your issues started, your health issues started,
Mm.
and have you had anything historically that we could sort of not really assign to, but kind
Right.
of match up. And then we decide what testing would be beneficial because I
Okay.
don't think that we can just, um, you know, basically know what can fix you if we really don't know how your levels are of specific things. So I focus on testing the gut.
Mm.
I do hair testing, so mineral hair testing,
Hmm.
and then I will do some blood work, right? That
Okay.
will allow us to see what's dysregulated, and that is heavily focused on things like iron and copper and just different nutritional chemistries.
Yeah.
And then at that point, once we run those tests, we come back and really think about what would be the most beneficial at this point for you. And I meet with my clients for about 5 months because I feel like just a one time thing,
Hmm.
there's just so much stuff and
Yeah.
so much accountability that
Mm.
needs to be there that I cannot help you in one visit.
Exactly.
It would not be beneficial to my clients.
Hmm.
Um, so it's sort of structured as a program with all the testing and then meeting every 2 weeks,
Okay.
adjusting things as needed, because we all know, sometimes you can buy a supplement, take it, and you feel like crap, it's not
Yeah.
working. You don't want
Yeah.
to take it.
Right.
So,
There's
so
no magic pill.
yes,
People need to
yes,
understand that, right? It because when you're suffering, you
hmm,
feel like you need something right away to ease the suffering. But honestly, we have to understand that suffering is the obstacle that actually leads you to the way of your healing. Like we
yes,
have to understand your body is a beautiful thing that will tell you what is up. Stop ignoring it.
yes,
Right. And so to
for
me,
sure.
like I love that you hair testing, like that's amazing. Like the all those tests are because each human being is their own biology,
Right.
right? There's not a one side. I love that you said that it's no one diet, no one
Yeah.
magic pill, because there
Yes.
isn't. There isn't. Like that's the thing. We've had fad diets for
Yes.
decades. I've been on
Yes.
this earth,
And
right?
none of them work because or none of them stick because
Right.
really they're not sustainable long term.
Right.
Um, and you cannot. I remember things like cabbage diet or
Oh
something.
my
It's
goodness.
like
Yeah.
just some random things that
Yes.
somebody. I mean, you can lose weight
Yeah.
fast if you stop
Right.
eating,
The grapefruit
right? But
diet. Remember
yeah,
that
it's like
one?
if you just focus on grapefruits. But is that really healthy and is it
Right.
really sustainable long term?
Exactly.
So, not only the food. I mean, with my clients, I go through the food. Obviously, we look at the diets, I assess their nutritional intake. Are they eating enough? Because we are led to believe that we are all overeating, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are
Mm-hmm.
all overeating. And maybe in some sense we are, but we are really undernourished. So we
Mm,
are eating things that are not nourishing us. So we're not eating enough. So our bodies are perceiving a lack. And so if you're not eating enough of the things that your body needs,
mm-hmm.
um, and you're just eating, I don't know, Oreos or chips or other things, and sometimes not even those things, but maybe not enough of the things that are really needed,
Mm-hmm.
like minerals, like protein, your body will still perceive a lack. So you can continue. I mean, you can eat a 1200 calorie diet and still gain weight or not
Yeah.
lose any weight. It is
Wow.
quite possible, but
Okay.
1200 calories is really a toddler diet, and we should never recommend that to women. And that
Yeah.
is
What
frequently what women do.
Well, and being trained that calories in, calories out, like
Yes.
one calorie is equal to the other. And I'm sitting there thinking, and Dr. Mark Hyman, I'm sure you know who Dr. Mark,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
doctor's pharmacy, like
Yes.
FARM, not pharmacy, pharmaceutical. But he talks about that. I learned a lot from him. And
Mm-hmm.
what he says about calories in, calorie, like a calorie from a broccoli is not the same as a calorie of a little Debbie's cake,
Yes.
right? And so it's to me, Dr. David Bernstein, who I had on my show a
Mm-hmm.
couple of episodes ago, he's the one who helped me. He's a chiropractor nutritionist back in the day who really taught me a lot too. Um, and he was saying that with calories or like it's not a diet. Like stop thinking about this as a diet.
Yes.
Think of it as a lifestyle change because the word diet has such a negative connotation or it becomes so pressurized or so
Mm-hmm.
guilt and shame and it's like, oh my gosh, I have to be on this diet. And it's like,
Yes.
Kate, what do you do with your clients? Like, how do you shift that perspective for them or help them shift their perspective with that?
Yeah. So um, what I explain is that, somewhere along the way, we have lost the way that we think has been lost, kind of, because we thought back in the day that eating regular food, which actually is food, was really just nourishing yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you go to a restaurant and you order a healthy meal, you're like, when are you on a diet?
Mm,
No, it's not a diet. It's actually what I eat every single day. It's not a diet. So
right.
we have to really reframe it in our
Mm-hmm.
mind that you're not on the diet, you're really just eating healthy. And
Right.
eating healthy is supportive for your body. And if you want to show up to your family the best that you can and to friends and just in your life, you really have to think about it differently and not as another diet that you're going on. It's really, this is how we should be eating.
Yeah, for sure. And you feel better when and I know
Yes.
people struggle. So if you're a listener that does struggle because that is food can become an addiction. They
Hmm.
purposely put that high fructose corn syrup in our foods on purpose so they can make more money,
Yes.
right?
Agreed.
So go ahead.
For sure. And so I tell people because it's, most of the time we will hear, hey, remove all the fast food, remove the processed foods, and just focus on real foods.
Yeah.
Yes, but just doing that can be extremely difficult for some people, extremely
Yes.
difficult. So my approach is let's start adding in some things that are healthy, right? Let's add more stuff that is healthy. And those other things will eventually fall off, right? Because you will
Mm,
have less cravings. If you, for example, if you wake up in the morning and have a coffee to start off, and then you eat a bagel, right, with some
mm-hmm.
cream cheese, by 10 a.m. or 11, you're going to be starving or you're
Yeah.
going to feel like you need some candy or another coffee or something
Yeah.
else. Same thing happens with lunch, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
eat a salad that does not have any protein on it or good fat, uh, by 2 p.m., you will literally have food cravings that you cannot control. right?
Right.
2
It's
p.m.
the
you will
2
need a coffee. Yeah,
yes, it's the
the crash.
drive-through. It's the 2
Yes,
p.m. drive-through at Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts. And
exactly.
I'm like, wow, that's a big line.
Yeah.
Or 3 o'clock. Yeah. And I get
And
it.
and if
Yeah.
we can just focus and structure our day and structure our food in the way where you will add, let's say you will focus your breakfast around some healthy protein and maybe healthy fiber, you will not have those feelings. So it will be so much easier for you to control the cravings. I'm not saying that you will never feel like, oh, I could eat a piece of cake.
Mhm.
Yes, but it will be in a matter that you can control and it feels right. And it's not like, oh my gosh, I opened that bag of chips and I just eat the whole thing, right?
Oh my goodness, I'm guilty of that. I'm sorry. I'm going to be so honest right now. It's like I know, and I'm self-aware that around 3:30 p.m. and I think it's a training that I had as a child when I would come home as a latchkey child and turn on the TV to watch after
Have a
school
snack.
specials in the 70s and have a snack. And it became
Yes.
comfortable. And then all of a sudden, I noticed that I have to crunch on something around if unless I have a client. If I'm busy working, then I it gets
Right.
through my
It
system,
goes
but I
away.
become aware of like, oh, I'm aware that I'm needing, I want this, not needing. It's a difference.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wanting this bag of puffs, good, it's called good evil cheddar puffs.
Yes, yes, I know those. We have those, we have those because sometimes you just need something
Right. It's not
crunchy,
about
right?
being perfect. It's
Right,
right. You're not telling your
exactly.
clients to be perfect. You're telling your client, and I love that, Kate, that you tell, and I kind of say that to the clients that have addictions, right? It's like,
Hmm.
I'm not asking to stop smoking pot or stop drinking alcohol. It's not that. I'm
Yeah,
asking you to try something new.
yeah,
Let's change your brain and your gut because you get to train your brain and your
yes,
gut, right?
right,
Neuroplasticity and
yes,
also the microbiome. You
yes.
change, you have that power. You're going to either choose for it to master you or you're going to learn to
Hmm.
master it
For sure.
one step at a time. And this is why I love having people like you on because it is a team effort.
Hmm.
Like anyone listening, you could come to me for the mental health stuff, right? I could teach you cognitive behavioral therapy, and you go to Kate for the nutritional stuff. And she has that knowledge and wisdom that I don't have. And we become, a team for you until you get to be able to be free from whatever it is that's happening to you and have some great tools
Yes,
so
for
you
sure.
can actually become a better human being or the human being you're probably wanting to be. And
Yes.
it's hard, right? It's hard because you don't know where to start. I know I was overwhelmed when I had a bunch of thyroid issues. And when I
Mm.
say thyroid issues, I mean you went to one doctor and another doctor and
Yeah.
they're trying and then they're telling you have to get, your thyroid removed and be on synthroid for the rest of your life. And then you
Yes,
try that and then there's side effects and it's hard work.
it
So,
is.
right, it is hard work to shift and try to especially if your family doesn't understand or they're like, what, gluten, come on, that's just a fad, gluten free.
Yeah.
So can you tell me, like, is there certain foods that you absolutely love for human beings to eat, or like what do you mean about protein and what do you mean about like healthy fats? Because some people really don't understand. They think because a bar says, protein 10 grams,
Yes.
let's do that, or ensures. Like I've seen
Yes.
people be
Oh,
like, I'm healthy, I'm drinking Ensure. I'm going, let's talk
yes.
about that a little bit.
So, yeah, a lot of those healthy foods that we are told are healthy
Mm-hmm.
are not really healthy. And for example, canola oil is one of those things, or soybean oil, or
Mm-hmm.
corn oil, which is really touted. You will go to Publix and you will still see a sticker on it, heart healthy. It is absolutely not heart healthy. Those are not healthy fats. Polyunsaturated fats are not healthy for us. We can have some of those fats that we are consuming in other areas. So nuts are also polyunsaturated, but just have a very different composition. There is also vitamin E in there. So that sort of allows us to use it up better and not being really inflammatory to us because those corn oils and canola oils are really inflammatory. And if you looked at the graphs of when we started having all those heart issues,
Mm-hmm.
heart failure, and really diabetes also, because all of that is sort of connected, metabolic syndrome, really, that's what they call it. that all started when we started massively producing those not healthy fats, right? We
Mm,
started telling people, hey, don't eat real butter, eat this margarine made out of canola. And
mm-hmm.
it was really in everything. And at this point, if sometimes I laugh because like you really have to read every single
Ingredient.
nutrition, yeah, every
Yes.
single ingredient, every single label, because uh, dried fruit, for example, will have canola oil. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
just
Yeah.
blows my mind. Why do you need to add this to everything?
Well,
Um,
let's talk about that for a second. Why do you think these companies are putting all these additives and preservatives in our foods?
well, partially is because it keeps them fresh, I
Hmm.
suppose,
For a
right?
lot longer shelf
For a
life,
lot
right?
longer, and it's cheaper to make.
Right. There you have
Um,
it.
and then I don't know, but sometimes I feel like, are they doing it on purpose so that we're sick? That's kind of like that,
Well, there
the
is
dark
a
side.
no, it is. There's a group of thinkers out there that think that is, I don't want to say conspiracy theorists, but
Right.
that really believe that if you control the food, you control the humans. And
Yeah.
if you, right, or if we have a sick care system in the
Sick care, yeah.
westernized culture. I mean, think about this. America and I think it's New Zealand or Australia that are the only ones that are allowed those
New Zealand, yeah.
pharmaceutical commercials,
Yes.
right?
Oh,
All other
so crazy.
countries, all
Talk
other
to your doctor. Yeah.
yeah, but all your other countries, they don't have the dyes and the chemicals
Mm-hmm.
like we do here. And they don't have the commercials that are bombarding us, making us think that we are really sick because it's a money making machine.
Yes.
And I want to empower the listener, right? That they have choices and it's free. A lot of this stuff is free, not food. I
Yes.
get it. Because that's another thing I hear, with the food deserts. And I understand I come from the inner city where I remember, there wasn't farms and fresh vegetables and everything like
Yeah.
that. So, what do you say to somebody that's like, Kate, Diana, that's easy for you all, but I can't afford, I have 5 children. I can't afford healthy foods. What do you say to them?
Yeah. So I understand if we're talking about things that are, higher end type of, like, if you want to replace all of your children's snacks from the cheap, gigantic multi-pack of, I don't know, little bags of chips to something that is a little bit healthier, I get it. It's going to cost money. But what you can focus on is really increasing the amount of fresh foods that you're eating. So, um, for example, if you just want to focus on protein, even if you don't get the highest quality at this point because you can't afford the highest quality protein, any protein will be better than eating junk,
And
right?
what do you mean protein? Can you give me an
So,
example of
yeah, so
protein?
protein will be any type of meat,
Okay.
any type of meat. And I'm not, most people, when we think about meat, we think beef and steaks, right? But
Mm-hmm.
really, there's cheaper cuts of meat, which you will have to cook for longer, maybe roast, or maybe just things that you need to put in the slow cooker and just cook all day, that are a lot cheaper and a lot healthier for us. Add some organ meats to
Mm,
different things, right? That is not popular anymore, but that was always a cheaper option, but to be honest, is a lot healthier option as well.
mm,
So focusing on that, maybe doing things that will allow you to have multiple meals from one cooking, right? So, for example, let's say if you buy, instead of buying chicken breasts because it's convenient, buy a whole chicken, cook that chicken, and then you can make, with leftover meat that you have that you pull off the bones, you can make, let's say, chicken salad
mm.
that would could serve as a lunch, and then you can also take that whole carcass with all of the bones and make soup out of it.
Wow.
So there's just multiple ways that you can use, different things to sort of go further. But we are just so used to, okay, I'm going to go to the store and buy a bag of chicken nuggets. But to be
Mm-hmm.
honest, it's not healthy and it's not really cheaper.
Right.
So if
Well,
you
well, it's
just
true.
focus on those fresh things, you
Okay.
could, and like potatoes, I know people say, oh, potatoes are not good. It's, we are starting to fear real foods because, for example, because the fruit has sugar. Yes, it has sugar, but it is sugar that we are we are designed to eat. So
Right.
I'm not saying just eat only
Right.
fruit,
Right.
but
Pineapple all day or something, or bananas
yeah,
all day, because that's
yeah,
something like, we need
obviously,
a variety
exactly.
of, and I also learned something about like ancestral, like Kate, your heritage is from Poland,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Yes,
Right. And
yes,
mine is from South America and the
yes.
Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's also understand that is why you're an individual creation that's
Yes.
fearfully and wonderfully made. And you have to become aware of who you are, listener. Like you
Mm-hmm.
have to have that understanding that your biology is not going to be the same as Kate or mine. And,
Right.
but honestly, the creator of the universe, to me, it's God, um, has created the
Yes.
herbs, the spices, the foods, everything we need. The closer you get to nature, the healthier you will be.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, when people are like, I can't afford it, I'm like, you're gonna pay either way.
Yes.
You will. You'll pay for prevention or you'll pay for intervention.
Yes.
Right.
And it's the same thing with time. Well, I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to cook. Well, I can tell you that you don't have time now, but when you're sick, your body will make you have time
Ooh,
because you will have to take the time to make those changes. And people will still say, well, isn't there an easier way that I can just maybe take something, or even if it's natural? And I say to you that you cannot create change without making changes, right? So
mm,
nothing will change in your life unless you change something. And adding a supplement is not changing something, it's just adding a supplement. And
mhm.
I can guarantee that you will not have results from that as much as you would if you changed your lifestyle. I mean, silly things like sunshine every day. People just don't give any credit to sun anymore. It's like we
They're
have to
scared of it.
hide from it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they are so scared of the sun. And that's something I tell my clients when I give them their treatment plan. I'm just like, okay, so this, and they just started with me. And then I'm just like, okay, this week, what can you do? I give them a list and I'm like, pick
Yeah.
one thing to do. And on
Hmm.
that list would be 10 minutes in the sunshine in the morning, not, or the late afternoon, not in the 12 o'clock, 1
Hmm.
o'clock in the afternoon where you will get, especially if they're fair skin.
Yeah.
If they're darker, I give them a little extra time because that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We're so different. Like your skin and my skin are very different. I can handle it because I have higher melanin, right?
Hmm.
But
But
for, yeah, go
even
ahead.
with the differences in our skin, it also depends on how are you getting sun?
Right.
Because if you're never getting sun, you will burn no matter what your skin color is.
That's true.
So if you consistently get, a couple minutes here, a couple minutes there, and be mindful and really on purpose about being in the sunshine,
Mm-hmm.
your skin will be better tolerating of the sun. And of course, we're in Florida, so
Yeah.
I tell people there are some people out there. It's like you never need to cover up, you never need to use
Yeah.
sunscreen.
I
We're
know.
in Florida. If
Yeah.
you're out there on the boat and you're on the water all day, you will
Right.
get burnt no matter what. So
Yes.
you need to cover up, you need to take precautions.
Mm-hmm.
That's not ideal to get burnt, but you still need some sunshine. And
Yeah.
same thing with sunglasses, right? We see everybody with sunglasses first
Mm-hmm.
thing in the morning. No, remove the sunglasses. Get some sun rays in your eyes because that
Mm-hmm.
really stimulates your circadian rhythm and really helps with balancing your hormone. It's really beneficial to our gut microbiome. There's just so many benefits from sun.
Yes. Sun, whole foods. This is what I'm hearing.
Hmm.
Um, so tell me, like, what helped you like when you were shifting your perspective, right? Because it is a shift and renewing of the mind. What helped you when you first started on this path? Like what was the first thing you changed on your way you ate or stuff like that, or what helped
Hmm.
you feel better?
So definitely removing a lot of the baked stuff, right? Because we are very, as a culture, very reliant on bread and pasta and all of the grains. So cutting down on the grains definitely was helpful. I was at that, I was at that point already living a healthy lifestyle. I was outside, I was gardening, we were moving. Um, so, some of those things I was already doing, but the diet portion, making sure that you're remineralizing your water, for example, switching from plastic bottles to just really making sure your water's clean and healthy, and adding minerals and focusing on foods that are the closest to their natural state as they can be.
Hmm. Wow. So I know when this episode comes out, it should be right before New Year's. And so this is where a lot of people are like, all right, I just heard this podcast on
I can do it.
I'm going to do it, right? And so can you just, while we're closing out, what encouragement or advice or whatever comes to mind that you would like the listener as they go into 2025 to
Mhm.
help them out, or is there resources or books or just tell me like whatever comes to mind?
Yeah, so I think the number one thing to remember is that we cannot be, like we mentioned before, 100% perfect, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
on New Year's, everybody goes in with the mindset that this is it, this is what I'm going to do now. And then in 2 weeks, maybe you slip up and then, well, it all goes to heck, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. So, what I encourage people to do is just start with one small change, and see how you can stick with that and just commit to making sure that you are sticking with that one thing, small thing, not
Mm-hmm.
like a whole diet change,
Right.
just one small thing. And that one small thing will start making a difference for you. And then eventually you will be able to have another small thing added or removed or whatever it is, right? So, really focusing on small, simple changes,
Yeah.
making it really simple and really um, something that you cannot like just, well, it doesn't,
Yeah, one small thing.
yeah,
I know I had clients where I'm like, tomorrow you're going to start with lemon water, fresh
yeah,
lemon. Get yourself. And they're like, that is the weirdest thing I ever heard. I hired you to be a therapist, not to tell me how to drink water. And can I tell you, it's made a difference. And then they're like,
yeah,
okay, what other thing? So, is
yes.
there a resources? Do you have anything on your website, or how can
So
people find you?
So I have a simple guide to gut health, and you
Mm-hmm.
can get that on my website, simpleandsweetnutrition.com, under, I believe, freebies or free resources. It's the
Wonderful.
first one on top. It has simple things, and I tell people just pick one from each page because we have pre-meal, during your meal, and then after your meal. Just pick one thing that you want to do
Mm-hmm.
and commit to that. And then you can see if maybe other things would make sense and you are able to apply them as well.
That's wonderful. All right, I'll have all that in the show notes. I also have a free PDF. I'm still trying to figure out how to put that on it's there, but I did it myself because I'm a sort of like frugal in that manner at times where I'm like, I'll figure it out myself. But
Yeah,
you'll
you
see it.
can
It's a
do
big
it.
circle, a big PDF circle on my resource page. And I also have other podcasts that like the ancient um is it Ancient Health and the Model Health Show and Dr. Huberman. I mean, just these people that
Hmm.
I've learned a lot from that I
Yeah.
want to share because that's the whole point of the show is that I'm only one person and I can only handle
Yes.
10 to 20 clients a week. But
Hmm.
I want my culture, my society, the world to be better.
Yes.
There's too many people suffering, and that's because
Hmm.
they don't have the knowledge. And I want to freely give that information
Yes.
because it's not about me, it's about all of us being together on this world. Especially, we need to unite nowadays more than ever because you see how it is. And that stress will affect your microbiome
For sure.
and it'll affect your mental health.
Yes.
So like we're holistic beings. That's why we're here right now, Kate and I just hope that you check out her resources, check out my resources, and remember, listener, sweet, sweet listener, trust in the Lord, guard your heart, and renew your mind. Bye. And now for the disclaimer to make sure you understand that you are responsible for you. The content provided on the Holistic Counselor podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified mental health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical or mental condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. The views expressed on this podcast are my personal opinions and do not represent the views of any professional organizations with which I am affiliated. Call your doctor, 911, or 988 immediately if you have a medical emergency. The Holistic Counselor podcast does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on the podcast. Reliance on any information provided by the Holistic Counselor podcast, guests appearing on the podcast at the invitation of the Holistic Counselor podcast, or other listeners to the podcast is solely at your own risk. Confidentiality notice. If you engage with the Holistic Counselor podcast by commenting or posting and are a client, please be aware that you may be revealing information that could compromise your confidentiality. Please remember that disclosing your identity or personal details can be linked to your clinical material. As a therapist, I am bound by confidentiality and will not respond to any disclosures of this type on this podcast. I am committed to upholding the ethics and confidentiality of the therapeutic relationship, which extends to all forms of communication in accordance with the laws and professional guidelines that govern mental health professionals. I want you to know that your privacy is of utmost importance, and you are responsible for protecting it when interacting on this platform or any other public forum. Thank you.